Welcome to Screw the Commute, the entrepreneurial podcast dedicated to getting you out of the car and into the money, with your host, lifelong entrepreneur and multimillionaire, Tom Antion.
Hey everybody, it's Tom here with episode 800 of Screw the Commute podcast. Listen to that, 800. Well, I'll tell you what, we couldn't have a better guest on this momentous episode. His name is Richard Kaufman. He's the comeback coach. And when you hear his story of what crap he's been through and came back and now is inspiring tens of thousands of other people, you'll be amazed. And it's part of Vetpreneurs Month. September is always Vetpreneurs Month here on Screw the Commute podcast, where we might have to have him on twice because apparently he's the only guy we know that's been in the military twice.
Yeah, it's a very rare feat.
Exactly. Yes. And another thing more serious, he wasn't even supposed to be alive to talk to us today, and he believes in today I decide, and I'm sure he's going to tell us about that. All right, hope you didn't miss episode 799. That was Adam Bardwell. He was also part of Vetpreneurs Month. And episode 797 was one of my favorite veterans and military spouse of the year, Rochelle Futch. Anytime you want to get to a back episode, you go to screwthecommute.com/ and then the episode number, Rochelle 797, Adam 799, and I'm sure you're going to want to pass Richard's around as 800. All right, check out my mentor program at greatinternetmarketingtraining.com. It's the longest running, most successful, most unique ever in the field of internet and digital marketing. Also, pick up a copy of my automation ebook at screwthecommute.com/automate free, and you will thank me for it because it'll save you hundreds and hundreds of hours into the future. We're making money and taking care of customers and clients and prospects and developing products and services rather than fighting with your computer. So grab that at screwthecommute.com/automate free and follow me at TikTok at Digital Multimillionaire. All right, let's get to the main event. Richard Kaufman has personally come back from, listen to this, drug addiction, homelessness, PTSD, a traumatic brain injury, blindness. But now he's a 2-time best-selling author, a top 0.5% globally ranked podcast host and producer, and an in-demand public speaker on resilience in life and business. Richard, are you ready to screw the commute?
Oh yeah. But I don't know if I can follow those two last guests. That's hard. That's kind of hard that's a lot of pressure.
I think you can do it. Now, I got to tell you, you're not going to be as good looking as Rochelle, but neither am I, I can't think of too many people that are. So, but they did a great job. But your story is, I don't know what Adam's backstory was. I kind of know Rochelle a little bit, but nobody has your backstory that I know. So. Tell them about, so you're twice in the military because you got kicked out the first time, right?
Yeah. And I want to say thank you for having me on your show. It's been a long time coming. But guys, I did get a hug from Tom at Mick DC. Yep. So I got to say that. So, yeah, You got a virtual hug for the rest of your life for the things that you've been through and the good things that you're doing. How about that? Well, for a time, I was the worst soldier in the world. I got thrown out for being a drug addict the first time. Got back in, which never, ever happens. I think I'm the only person I know that did. And I almost got thrown out again for a second time. But because of what transpired at 8:46 on the morning of September 11th, 2001, changed my life and the whole trajectory of my life. And actually where I'm sitting right now, if I look outside, instead of my front stoop, I'm sitting in the shadows of where the Twin Towers once stood, because we knew a lot of people that were in the buildings that day. And that was the day that was one of the turning points in my life that actually changed my whole life. It's from me going to, excuse my language, a shitbag to Soldier of the Year within 3 years.
That is amazing. So we'll get back to that point in your life, but I want to back up and take it through. I mean, you've been kicked out of your house. Your mother was an addict. Um, take us back into the childhood days of Richard and what you came up through.
Okay, well, my father left when I was 3 months old. My mother was an active addict, but she was what they call a functioning addict. So she would be able to go to work as a nurse, and she paid the bills. But other than that, I was pretty much raised by babysitters and whoever would take me. And I got in trouble a lot. But the one thing that, and I tell this on my show all the time, that my one solace was reading. I became an avid reader because I figured if I read a book, I can go anywhere in the world. So that was my solace. And so up to this point, I think I've read over, I think I'm up to like 6,200 books.
Oh my
So
God.
I just love to read. I'm a knowledge
You're an
addict.
Yeah, you're a novel addict. I mean, is it fiction or nonfiction?
Pretty much nonfiction.
Mm-hmm.
And when because my mother was a nurse, back when they actually had encyclopedias.
Right.
I read the whole Encyclopedia Britannica.
No kidding.
But then I also read all her nursing books. So
well, my dad did too. You two are the only two I ever know that read the entire World Book Encyclopedia.
Yep. So I was reading anatomy and physiology at like 6 or 7. But knowing what I know now is I had a learning disability. I had severe ADHD. So, and I was a troublemaker. So I had my first drink at 11. I was a full-blown alcoholic by 13.
Oh my God.
And I got thrown out I'm a 9th grade dropout. I got thrown out of school for hitting a teacher in the head with a desk. They frown upon that.
See, the bunch of those teachers are a bunch of sissies now. I got to tell you, can't take one.
They just can't take it to the head
desk.
anymore. They can't take a desk to their head like anymore. So my choice was either I became an emancipated minor at 16, and then when the day I turned 17, I shipped to the military because I figured either military or jail, and I went and I joined, and unfortunately I did both while I was in.
What, they threw you in the brig in the military?
Oh yeah, I got busted like 6 or 8 times for so many things.
You had some kind of record, didn't you? With
yeah, I think I had
15s.
I think I had 8. I think it was the last total. The last total was like 8 Article 15.
Oh my God! Tell everybody what an Article 15 is.
Article 15 is when they slap you on your wrist, and they're like your parents. They tell you you can't go out for a week. You got to clean your room and clean others' rooms, and we're taking like 30% of your pay.
Whoa, wow! What's a field Article 15?
Yeah, but and then I had 2 field grade Article 15.
Yeah, what does that mean?
That means they put you on like 40 days restriction. Means you can't go anywhere for 45 days.
Wow.
45 days extra duty, and they take like 75% of your pay.
Wow. And I heard you describe yourself as an asshole.
I was. I was.
What are some of the behaviors you exhibited that gives you that nice name?
It was all about me, because you know what? I was 17 years old and I didn't expect to live to the age of 20. So I said, screw it. I did whatever I wanted to do. You know, what was the old saying that, look good, and when you die, just leave a good looking corpse. So I was just like, all right, I'm going to do what I want to do. So at 17, I actually went to Germany. I was actually at Oktoberfest in Germany at 17 years old, partying with Joan Jett. So at that age, I did whatever the hell I wanted to do, and if it bothered you, oh well. If you didn't like me, oh well. I wasn't concerned.
And that led to your Article 15s, I guess, right?
Well, yeah, because I would get paid on Friday, and then I'd get drunk, and I'd wind up like 4 hours away in another town. I've wound up in other states just because I got hammered as soon as I got paid, and then I found acid, and I became a drug addict and an alcoholic.
Oh my God. Well, I remember you talking about a job you had at a bar that a police officer gave you. Where did that fall in this timeline?
Well, that's after I got thrown out for being an addict and alcoholic.
Ah.
And my mother said, well, you have to. She let me move back in for a little bit. She said you got to go to school or something. So I went to school to be a professional bartender.
I'm sorry to laugh, but you're an alcoholic. And you decide to become. I mean, kind of smart, really. I mean, you're an alcoholic.
No, I mean, of course, I aced every class. I couldn't wait to taste test.
Right.
But then the first job I got was on New Year's Eve of 1989, and the guy that hired me was a police officer, and he owned a bar, and he took a chance on me for my first job, and everything was going great. Everything was going awesome. I started having a few drinks, giving some drinks away, and then like 8 hours later, I wound up with him and like 3 of his buddies knocking on my door with an arrest warrant.
Oh my God.
Because I gave away like $3,000 worth of free drinks, and I had like $5,000 in my pocket.
Oh my God.
Weren't exactly happy campers when they were coming to lock me up for grand larceny. I was looking at 5 years.
Oh, geez. So what happened?
That wasn't fun. Well, what happened was he's like, bro, because I was 20 years old. He's like, bro, you're a white dude, good looking. I send you to jail. You're going to be somebody's bitch. He's like, so you got 2 choices. He's like, you can get my money by the end of the day. You got 24 hours. I don't care if you got to beg, borrow, just don't steal. And you can go to AA for the next 90 days. Or I could pick you up tomorrow morning and take you to jail, where you're going to be there for at least 5 years.
Oh my God.
So I made the right choice. I begged everybody and I borrowed, and they came up with the money, and I did pay them all back, every single penny.
Good for you.
And I went to my first AA meeting on January 1st, 1989, still drunk and hungover at 20 years old. And he said I had to go to 90 meetings in a row. I hit like 300 in a row.
Wow.
And I haven't had a drink since that day in 1989.
Wow. Because it worked, huh?
Well, it was that. And I was afraid to go to jail. And I knew my life was totally out of control. I had no job. I got thrown out of the military. I didn't know where to go. And when I sat down with these old crusty 40, 50-year-old guys, I realized we all had something in common. We were all alcoholics. So I decided to stay.
That's amazing. And so now fast forward to 9/11.
So what happened was the same uncle that bailed me out. Now he was a 4th grade dropout. He was a professional boxer in the United States military.
Is he still alive?
No, he passed at a young age. And as he bailed me out, he said something in my ear. He said, you know what? I knew you never had what it takes to be a military man.
Wow.
And it just ate at me. I couldn't sleep for months. I'm like, all right, I got to get back in. I'm like, I got to prove him wrong. So I had to write letters to Congress, all kinds of crap to get back in. And the National Guard actually took me back in, and I joined the Pennsylvania National Guard like 2 years later.
Wow. So they took you back, huh? That had to be a big process, because of getting thrown out of the first time.
Well, they had to do drug tests, and then they had to do alcohol tests, and I had to get letters written, and I had to write letters to Congress. So, but they got me back in, and then I moved to South Carolina. But now this
you
whole
were
time
still
I'm
an
back
asshole,
in,
right?
Oh, I was like, I was such an asshole. I heard you
say that. I'm not saying that. I heard you say that.
I was such an asshole, and the only difference was I didn't drink. So now I'm an asshole with no excuse. And I joined the South Carolina National Guard. And first of all, I joined the South Carolina National Guard in the South. And when you're a loudmouth kid from Jersey, that's not great at all. And then when you have a bad attitude, that's not great at all. And then one of my tank commanders at the time was actually a brother of one of the Pittsburgh Steelers at the time. So he was totally hard on me.
Which one? Which Steeler?
His name was LeVar.
Oh, okay.
And So I got a couple more Article 15s. Why not?
Why not?
It just add to the list. And I missed the formation, and they're like, you know what, we're done. We're like, we can't take it anymore. You're too far gone. And then the morning of September 11th happened, and that, because as I'm watching the TV, watching everything unfurl, because everything was live. There was there was no editing, and all my stuff was that I had to pack and turn back in is all to the right of the TV. So I'm watching my big screen TV, I'm watching what's happening on 9/11, and then what really hit me is when they showed them pulling bodies out of the Pentagon.
Yeah.
Here I am, and something came upon me, and I wrote it in my book. I said, I actually became a broken man. I actually crumbled into my couch and started crying because these 2,997 people, they just went to work, and they're not coming home. And these soldiers, they're not coming home. And I wasted my whole life. And I literally cried out to the Lord. I said, Lord, give me one more chance. Give me another chance to help other people. And I said, if you give me another chance, I promise you, I'm going to spend the rest of my life helping people that can't help themselves. So I immediately got on the phone with my company commander and my first sergeant. And the funny thing is, I'm still friends with my company commander. And I said, Scott, I couldn't call him Scott then.
Right.
I said, I want to come in. I need to talk to you guys. I went in, I talked to them, and they're like, you know what? You've been in this office more than I think we've been in this office. And they said, but we see something different in you. You're a changed man. And I begged them to keep me. And they busted me all the way back down again. But they decided to keep me. They seen something different in me. And within 3 years, I became Soldier of the Year. I became a non-commissioned officer. And I ended up doing almost 24 years between National Guard and regular Army time.
Oh, my God. That sounds great. The only thing it reminds me of is my roommate one time. He was a Marine, and he got some type of big medal in the morning in front of the colonel. And then in the afternoon, he was back getting busted for something. I forget, the same colonel.
Yep, that's probably sounds like somebody I would have hung out with.
Yeah.
So I get back in. I do everything I can to become the ultimate soldier. Went to every class. I never missed another. Was never even late for another drill. And at one point when I moved back to New Jersey, I drove 13 hours to drill on a Friday, 13 hours to drill home on Sunday, and never missed a drill for a year. But what happened was, we were on going to the field, and one of my vehicles broke down, and I had to pull him back off the road so he didn't get hit. And I was backing him up, and instead of him hitting the brakes, he hit the gas and ran over the whole right side of my body and ran over my head. And I had an ocular stroke.
Oh my God.
And I lost vision. 80% of my vision I lost. And that's where, like 3 years later, on Memorial Day 11 years ago, was a day that I attempted suicide, because after 23 years of, getting a second chance and becoming Richard Kaufman, soldier. Well, I'm no longer a soldier. They just told me, you're no longer a soldier. You're no longer Sergeant Kaufman. Well, who am I? And it scared me to death because I didn't know who Richard was. And that was the day that I attempted suicide. And that's but thank God it didn't go through. My 6-month-old daughter saved my life. And then that Tuesday morning, because it was Labor Day, is when I started seeing my therapist. And I've been seeing her for the last 11 years.
And is the blindness still there?
I'm at about 60%, I'd say.
60%.
But what happened was, while this time before they decided what they're going to do with me, everybody else that were getting medically discharged, they're all playing checkers, they're all playing cards. And I decided, well, okay, I'll do that for a little bit. but with my ADD, it wasn't very good. So I picked up a book,
Yeah.
and then I just started reading books on personal development. And this name, Gary Vaynerchuk,
Yep.
kept popping up. So one day I said, you know what? Because his dad's liquor store is 20 minutes from my house. I called. I said, hey, is Gary there? He's like, no, but he'll be here on Tuesday. I said, all right, tell him Rich is coming. He's like, I know him. So I actually went down, met Gary, had lunch with him. And he's the one that actually started the whole Comeback Coach, the podcast, and the book. It was all because of Mr. Gary Vaynerchuk.
Beautiful. And the topics you cover in the podcast.
Well, first, the first episode I ever did, it was because here I am blind. I can't work. I'm sitting home getting fat, dumb, and stupid. Gained like 30 pounds, cholesterol's high, diabetes. So I'm like, I got to do something. And then all my veteran friends in the Vetpreneur tribe were like, bro, you're the comeback coach. You need to come back.
Right.
And I didn't know how to do that. So I started the podcast because the first guest I interviewed him. He had both legs and both arms blown off in Afghanistan. And he's sitting in Aspen skiing with his family, hanging out in a hot tub. And I'm like, wait a minute. If that guy can do this, I can do it. So that's where it started. And then as I'm interviewing people, I'm realizing that if a veteran or a first responder, if they find another mission in life, like entrepreneurship, they're less likely to take their own lives if they have a mission. So that's when I started really talking to veterans, entrepreneurs. I've had actors, doctors, sports people, anybody you could think of I've had on the show. Because we're all dealing with the same stuff, no matter what field you're in, we're all dealing with the same crap. So now I just tell people, I teach people resiliency, whether it's in life and or business. Because I've had billionaires on, millionaires, multimillionaires, anybody you could think of I've had on. And like I said, we're all dealing with the same stuff. And, if anybody needs hope, I went from dope dealer to hope dealer.
And what's the name of the podcast?
Vertical Momentum Resiliency Podcast. If they look up Vertical Momentum on any search engine, we're on the first 6 pages of any search engine.
Beautiful. And tell us about you wrote a book too.
Yeah, well, Gary said, I was talking to him, and if you ever notice some of his early videos, in his videos in his office, he has a Wounded Warrior hat hanging up. That's mine.
Uh-huh.
I said, Gary, what do I do now? Okay, I got a story, but what do I do? He's like, I want you to do something that everybody tells you not to do. I want you to write a book. And I'm like, okay. And I said, why do you want me to write a book? He's like, I want you to tell everybody all the dirty shit you've ever did. I'm like, what? He's like, yeah. He said, I want you to go back and I want you to watch the movie 8 Mile. And I want you to watch the last 2 minutes. He's like, because if you watch that and then you tell your story in public, nobody can ever say a bad thing about you because you've already told your story.
Mm-hmm.
So I wrote the book and then I started the podcast. And the book is my story, but each chapter is, there's pinpoints on what not to do. And the last 2 chapters are, what does addiction look like? It's not what you think it looks like.
What does a what look like?
Addiction.
Oh, addiction. Yeah.
Yep. And then what does depression looks like? It's not what you think it looks like. So the last 2 chapters are actually learning chapters. And
I understand that you're not taking any money for this book.
No, I'm still in the hole for it because every penny that I make goes to helping veterans struggling with PTSD and homelessness. And that was something that maybe Gary talked about, because people will sell books just to make money. But for me, I want to make an impact. I'm more about impact because something that Gary said to me when I seen him the last time, when I got his last book, I said, Gary, give me a good nugget to take home with me. And he said, your legacy will always be more valuable than your currency.
Yeah.
And that just hit me hard. So now everything I do is to help leave this world a better place than before I got here.
And you certainly know about homelessness. You lived in your car for a year or so.
Yeah. Well, what happened? I mean, I tell these people all the time. Back in '80s, it was '88. I was bringing like $1,500 a week cash home, and I'd get paid. I'd go to the bar. I'd get rolled, and I would have like $20 left to last me for the week. So, and it was happy. I would happen every Friday. So that's the definition of insanity.
Yeah.
So I lived in my. But the funny thing is, I lived in my car for a year and a half. But where I'm sitting now is 3 miles away from where my car. I lived in my car, and I drive by it almost every day.
Wow.
But now I'm living, in a $600,000 home, 3 miles away from where I'm living in a car. So I'm just so grateful that God has let me do what I'm doing now.
You got your second chance, that's for sure.
I'm cats got nothing on me. They got 9 lives. Yeah. I got like 13, I think.
Well, boy. So how do they find the book, and how they find well, you know how to find the podcast, Vertical Momentum. Just type that in and you'll find the podcast. Where do they find the book?
Book is on Amazon Kindle. You can find it. It's called A Hero's Journey from Darkness to Light. And also, I forgot to mention, if you guys love coffee, I just came out with my own coffee, Vertical Momentum Coffee, where it's twice the energy, no crash. And again, 100% of the proceeds go to help veterans struggling with homelessness and PTSD.
Do you have decaf?
No, it's all high. It's
this
all
high test,
high
right?
blend, baby. High octane.
It's like a Jolt Cola they used to have a long time ago.
Oh, I used to love that stuff.
Well, thanks so much for coming on, man. I really love what you're doing, and overcoming the things you overcame, and helping other people to keep their spirits high and have a mission. So thanks a lot, Richard.
Well, I hope I did Rochelle and Adam justice.
You sure did. They're going to be envious of you. So
thank you so much, brother.
My pleasure. So, folks, this is again part of the great stories from our wonderful veterans who keep us safe, and that smack teachers in the head with desks. I don't know how many do that, but some of them deserve it. But anyway, thanks so much for coming on, and we will catch you for more of Vetpreneur Month this month. Catch you later.